Crimson Desert is almost here. Years of waiting, delays that tested even the most patient fans, and visuals that make you stop and think, how does a studio actually pull that off? The answer doesn't start with Crimson Desert. It starts with the man who built the company that made it possible. Before Pearl Abyss was a well-known game studio, it was 10 people in a room with a dream, and a founder who had already spent a decade learning exactly what kind of developer he wanted to be. His name is Daeil Kim, and if you want to understand the ambition of Crimson Desert, you first need to understand him. Kim was born on January 26, 1980, in Wando, a small island city on the southern coast of Korea. Like most kids in the mid-1980s, young Kim spent his afternoons at the local arcade. Games like Street Fighter II, Samurai Showdown, and Wonder Boy weren't just fun to him. They were the beginning of something bigger. At home, on the family's old computer, he sank hours into games like Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Dune 2. And when a game called SimCity 2000 came out, it was too powerful for his machine to run. So he ran to his friend's house day after day just to play it. He wasn't just having fun, he was falling in love with what games could be. The real turning point came in middle school. Kim's tutor was studying computer engineering in college, and his tutor told him something that changed his life forever. If you want to make games, you have to learn how to code. From that moment on, his free time was dedicated to programming. He was so into coding that when his computer broke, he literally wrote code by hand in a notebook, running the programs in his head. He wasn't studying for school anymore. He was studying for a dream. Kim wasn't a great student during middle school. His grades suffered because all he cared about was programming. But at his sophomore year of high school, he had a clear goal. He had to get out of the small island and get to Seoul. He pushed himself and got his grades up. He earned a spot at Hanyang University's computer engineering program in 1999. This was exactly where he wanted to be. Powerful computers, real programming, 3D graphics, you name it, they had it. It was a very exciting time in gaming. Everything was shifting from 2D to 3D, and Kim threw himself into 3D programming, spending his weekends coding while everyone else was out having fun. He sunk hours in coding forums, asking questions, and helping other developers. But after 2 years, something felt off. He didn't feel like he was learning what he wanted to learn in school. He wanted a more hands-on experience. And in the winter of 2000, someone was paying attention to Kim's posts on these coding forums. It was actually a gaming company called Gamasoft, and they actually offered him a job. He was 21, but without hesitation, he dropped out of school and walked into Gamasoft. A degree that teaches you things you don't want didn't really matter to him. All he wanted was to learn and develop games. At Gamasoft, Kim was put on a project that would shape the rest of his career. A 3D MMORPG called Real Online, short for Risk Your Life. He started at the very bottom. His mindset was simple. Whatever they asked him to build, he'd build it. But the gaming industry in Korea in the early 2000s was a bit messy. People kept leaving and teams were unstable. And by the time the first beta test for Real Online was coming up, something unexpected happened. Kim, barely 23 years old, had become the lead developer of the whole game. He never asked for it. Everyone was being replaced except for Kim. He was just the one with the most knowledge about the game. It was a huge amount of responsibility for a 23-year-old with no management experience. It was overwhelming, but he got through it. Real Online shipped, and when it did, it took off. The game's combat felt different from anything else in Korea at that time, and people still talk about how good it felt to play Real Online. But Kim didn't stick around long after launch. In August of 2003, just 2 months after Real Online went live, he left Gamasoft and joined NHN, one of Korea's biggest internet companies. He got a taste of success. Now he needed a bigger stage. At NHN, Kim started working on a new MMORPG, R2, Reign of Revolution. This time, he was in from day one. It was his game, start to finish. R2 launched in August of 2006 and did well enough to earn Kim the Prime Minister's Award for Digital Content. He got promoted to Vice Director of Development. But it was his next game that would really put him on the map. In April 2007, Kim started working on C9, an action game that focused on smaller group play, dungeons, and tight, fast combat instead of a massive open world. He was leaning into his strength. C9 launched in August 2009 to huge praise. Over 420,000 players logged in on the very first day. By the end of that year, it swept the Korea Game Awards for graphics, characters, sound, best game, and best developer for Kim himself. At 29 years old, Kim was one of the most well-known game developers in the country. Despite his success, something felt wrong again. Even with all the awards, all the praise, and with thousands of players loving his games, Kim wasn't happy. Not with the games themselves, but with the situation around him. The longer he worked at big companies, the more he felt like developers weren't being treated as creators. They were being treated as technicians. He had all these ideas for where C9 should go next, but those decisions were increasingly being made by business teams and executives, not the person who actually built the game. After nearly 10 years and 3 hit games, Kim had less and less say over the worlds he was creating. He handed in his resignation from NHN in February 2010. It was time to build something on his own terms. In August 2010, Kim founded Pearl Abyss, a pearl that shines in the darkness. The team started small, around 10 people, mostly developers who had worked with Kim before and were tired of dealing with the same frustrations he had. His goal was simple. He wanted to make the games he wanted to make, without a corporate structure telling him what to do. He put it plainly, I founded the company because I wanted to make my own games, to not follow trends, but to make what I believe in. But having creative freedom is one thing, and having the tools to act on is another. When most game studios start building a game, they use an existing game engine like Unreal Engine or Unity that handles a lot of the heavy lifting, so developers can focus on making the actual game. Kim decided not to do that. Right from the start of Pearl Abyss, before a single pixel of Black Desert was built, Kim had his team build their own engine from scratch. By any normal measure, this was the harder choice. It takes longer and it costs more upfront. It's very risky, especially for a small startup. So why do this? Because Kim had spent years fighting against the limits of other people's tools. When you build your game inside someone else's engine, you can only do what that engine lets you do. You're always working within someone else's boundaries. Kim wanted zero limitations. He wanted a system built to do exactly what he needed. A huge open world with no loading screens, combat that felt a specific way, and visuals that push the limits of what online games can look like. Building their own engine also meant Pearl Abyss didn't have to pay licensing fees to these companies, which helped them keep more of their earnings. Kim didn't stop there. After Black Desert succeeded, Pearl Abyss started building a brand new next-generation engine, built to work across PC, console, and mobile all at once. Kyung-in Jung, CEO of Pearl Abyss during 2019, said, "We're building a new engine with a 5 to 10 year vision. To compete with the world's top games, we felt we needed to take a leap forward. The goal wasn't just to keep up with the competition, it was to get ahead of them." Released in South Korea in December 2014, Black Desert Online was unlike anything the MMORPG world has seen. The graphics looked too good for an online game, and the combat was just amazing. The open world had a player-driven economy, node management, guild wars, and life skill systems like fishing, farming, and crafting. There was something for everyone. It was, as Kim described it, the first game where he made every single decision from start to finish. No one overruled him. No compromise forced by outside pressure. Just his vision, fully realized. Black Desert Online spread worldwide. It was first published in Korea through Kakao Games before Pearl Abyss took back full control in 2019. By then, the game had launched in over 150 countries, been ported to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and the mobile version had racked up over 3 million pre-registrations globally. The studio that started with 10 people had grown into one of South Korea's major publicly traded game companies. Daeil Kim never stopped building. After Black Desert, Pearl Abyss announced a whole lineup of new games, all built on their next generation engine: Crimson Desert, Plan 8, and Dokkaebi. Of all of them, Crimson Desert became the studio's biggest bet, a massive action RPG that aimed to compete with the best games in the world. Development took years, with multiple delays as the team pushed their new engine to its limits. Some people grew frustrated. Some questioned whether Pearl Abyss could actually pull it off. But Kim didn't rush. He learned long ago that shipping something before it was ready only leads to regret. The delay wasn't a sign of failure. It was the same commitment to quality that made Black Desert what it was. Pearl Abyss also expanded by buying other companies. In 2018, they acquired CCP Games, an Icelandic studio famous for their long-running space MMO, EVE Online. It gave Pearl Abyss an internationally recognized game and a team with years of experience keeping large online worlds running. In 2016, Kim stepped back from running the company day-to-day, handing the CEO role to a professional manager. He took the title of chairman of the board, stepping away from business operations so he can focus on what he always loved most: making games. Kim's story is really about one thing: the difference between making games and making your games. He spent a decade watching his work get taken over, changed, or held back by people who didn't build it. He poured himself into games that ended up going in directions he never wanted. His response wasn't to complain, it was to act. He built a company and a custom engine. He rebuilt the creative freedom that had slowly been taken away from him. And with that freedom, he made one of the most successful and visually impressive MMORPGs ever created. He dropped out of university at 21, not because he gave up, but because hands-on experience was the only education that mattered to him. He became the lead developer of a game at 23. He made 3 well-received games before he was 30. And he started a studio with 10 people and a vision most people would have laughed at. Today, Pearl Abyss employs hundreds of developers across multiple locations around the world, building some of the most visually ambitious games in the industry. There's a quote from Kim that really sums it all up. He said it during an interview about why he founded Pearl Abyss, but it applies to everything he's done. I founded this company because I wanted to make my own games. I think becoming a game developer was the calling of my life. He didn't want to be a technician following orders. He wanted to be a creator. If you enjoyed this video, you can also check out how Crimson Desert was made behind the scenes by clicking on the video showing on the screen. And if you're hyped for Crimson Desert, or if you've been playing Black Desert Online, let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Alright, peace.